Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to The Binding of Isaac Repentance. This time around, we're going to be covering the new ending pathway, the new final bosses, and probably talking about some of the Tainted characters as well, since they kind of come as part of the same overall package. For those of you unaware, the new ending pathway only really comes into effect starting from Dank Depths 2 or Necropolis 2, or any equivalent thereof. Essentially just a chapter where you fight the foot. So we're going to be skipping straight ahead to there because leading up to that point, it's just a normal Isaac run, really. I don't see the point of, working all the way up there from Basement 1, especially because there's quite a lot to talk about. So we're going with Judas for this. It doesn't really matter. This isn't my first time doing the new ending pathway. It's referred to as the Ascent. You'll see why when we get there if you don't already know. This isn't my first time, like I said. My first time doing it was just with Vanilla Isaac, but I had an issue with the recording, and yeah, we're going to be using this footage instead. I actually took a lot of different recordings for doing this, one with every character, in fact. But I wanted to make sure that the new final bosses kind of got a chance to show off what they can do, in a sense. There were a couple of times where I'd kill the boss really quickly, for example, and you don't get to see its patterns, you don't get to see the fight, really. On my first attempt, funnily enough, this was another reason why I didn't want to use the footage. On my first attempt, I had a really overpowered build with a box of friends and car battery, and just a ton of really powerful stuff. So my very first run of the new ending pathway, the new final bosses, was incredibly easy, actually. It was a bit of a shame, but, you always run the risk of being too powerful for your own good in Isaac, to the point where it kind of takes the fun out of it a bit. It's why when people complain about the difficulty of this game, I never really know where I sit on that debate, because Isaac kind of needs to be hard in order for it to be rewarding, but there's still so many ways you can break the game. It's tough. I don't envy the development team having to try and balance any of this shit. It just seems like an absolute fucking tragedy. It is also hot as shit where I am. We're in the middle of a blazing heat wave here in the UK, so if you can hear the fan on in the background, I do apologise. Also, it's 1:30 in the morning, which is pretty normal for me. I consider that peak recording time, apparently. But hopefully we'll have a good time here. Hopefully this goes okay. So I would like to briefly expand on what we're actually going to be doing, because when things start happening, it's going to be hard to talk a little bit. It's going to be hard to talk in any real detail because there's going to be so much going on. So in order to reach the new ending pathway, you basically just need a way of teleporting out of the room where you fight Mom. So you fight the foot, deal with her, then you need to leave the boss room. At the start of the floor, you may have noticed, there is now a door, which is unlike any other door in the game. It only appears after you've dealt with the mother boss on the alt pathway for the first time. You get a notification, something along the lines of like, a strange door has appeared. Ooh. And from this point on, that door will always be there on Dank Depths 2 or any of its equivalents. You don't need to do anything special. It's not on a time limit or anything like that. And what you do in order to open this door is you essentially plug either the Polaroid or the negative into the door, remove it from your that removes it from your inventory permanently, by the way, so don't get too reliant on those if you're playing as, say, Blue Baby, for example. One of the things that makes this pathway really difficult for him is he tends to rely a lot on the Polaroid shield, especially. But once you've done that, the door will open and you'll be able to progress onto the new pathway. That right there is one of the ways the game tries to make sure this is always doable. There is a tinted skull on the floor. It's guaranteed to spawn no matter what you do, even on an XL floor. I actually wasn't sure how XL floors would interact with any of this, but it's fine. The tinted skull still spawns, no problem at all. And bombing that will give you a Fool card 100% of the time. You can also just use any other method of teleportation. The game doesn't care, so if you wanted to use, I don't know, basically anything other than like undefined, that's way too risky, obviously. Iron Arrow Room. Then you'll be able to come back to the start and initiate the new sequence. It doesn't really take that much effort if you know what I mean. Even if you have a card that you wanted to hold on to, you can still just drop it somewhere else in the floor, come back for it once you've left the boss room. If you're in time for boss rush as well, you can take the opportunity to steal an item from the boss rush room. I think I do that in this video. Eraser is tempting, but no, I'm going to keep Book of Belial, thank you very much. So I would recommend trying to get here relatively quickly, just for the sake of being able to scrounge that extra item on your way up. It is worth mentioning that if for some reason you weren't able to open a treasure room at any point leading up to this, don't worry about that because you'll have the opportunity to come back to those treasure rooms. The contents won't change, but anything that was under the effect of, say, Curse of the Blind, if you did a couple of the alt path floors on the way over, then the question mark item in the choice pedestals, all of those will be revealed. So it might actually be in your best interest to skip the odd treasure room here and there. You will be able to go back for them. It's also useful if you're going for planetariums as well, which some people swear by. I know Huts is really, really big on planetariums. I'm kind of torn. Some of the planetarium items are amazing, and some of them really aren't. I'm looking at, like, Jupiter and Sol, but then you get ones like Mercurius and Uranus, which are amazing. I'm a bit torn on planetariums. But yeah, here, fortunately, I'm in time for boss rush, so we can just leave. It doesn't matter if you take the Polaroid or the negative. The negative now gives you a damage boost in Repentance. I feel like a lot of people forget that. But you'll lose the damage boost anyway when you plug it into the door frame, so it doesn't really matter. Unless you just want to clear out the last few rooms like I'm doing, and you, I don't know, maybe you want the damage boost or a shield or something. Otherwise it doesn't make a difference. But yeah, we'll be moving on to the ending pathway as soon as I just check out these last couple of rooms here. I haven't seen this footage in a long time. I recorded this, God, probably about a month ago. You're going to see a lot of footage in this video, put it that way. Slight spoilers for a certain ending montage, so stick around until the finish. Because Jesus Christ, there's a reason this video took a while. The editing wasn't difficult, but it was tedious, so needed to make sure I had like a couple of free evenings just to work through everything. So I do apologize for the delay, but hopefully the video is worth it in the end. I don't know, I think these videos are incredibly boring, but people seem to enjoy them anyway, so who am I to judge? Who am I to judge indeed? So going through that door will move you onto either Mausoleum 2 or Gehenna 2, but it's not just a normal, it's not just putting you all the alt pathway, you won't, you know, fight a normal boss that you'd expect to see at this point in the run, no. What this has done is this is a special version of the floor, complete with a shop and a treasure room, surprisingly. Which again, if you're not able to enter them, don't worry, you'll get the opportunity to go back and check them all over again. So feel free to explore this as thoroughly as you want to, but treasure rooms, not necessarily, it's not the end of the world if you miss them. The shop, however, I would highly recommend taking advantage of because that will go away on our return trip through here. And like I said before, this is also leading up to how you unlock the Tainted characters. I'm going to assume, at this point in time, basically everyone knows how this works, but there's always going to be someone who doesn't, someone who just randomly finds this video and thinks, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, I haven't played Isaac in like a year. So, there are now Tainted versions of every character. They are fully distinct entities from their original counterparts. They're not just alternate costumes or alternate skins. In a lot of cases, they play nothing like the original, they have their own completion marks, they are their own entity. Side note here, this section really pisses me off because I have to drop my card as part of this process. So I think, okay, well I'll use the Joker card and I'll Yera that soul heart in the other room, and then I immediately forget to pick it up on the way out, so you don't need to tell me about it, I'm aware I missed the soul heart. I don't know what I was doing at the time, it was probably like fucking 4 AM when I was playing this, but yes, I know I missed the soul heart. But the needing to drop my card is part of the process of unlocking the Tainted characters, because on your first run through, as in the very, very first time you do this, you will simply be able to use an active item at the end of the process in order to unlock one for free. The game basically gives you a Tainted character for free. On every subsequent attempt, we will need an empty consumable slot, and we'll need a trinket that we don't really care about. So, Pulse Worm here, or whatever it's called, fantastic candidate. It's actually the gold version of the trinket. Gold trinkets are kind of an odd thing. It's a gold trinket will have whatever its effect is doubled, but it only really works on trinkets that have like a numerical effect, so like a stat boost or something. Anything along the lines of like homing or a trajectory change, they don't get doubled, I suppose, because how would it even work? But what's the point of even spawning the golden version at all? Actually, I've just realised, yeah, the reason I didn't take that soul heart is because it was behind a pit. Ah, there we go. I'm not just a fucking disgrace. I didn't even see that pit in the editing room. Anyway, here begins the process. This is Dad's note. As soon as we pick this up, all hell is going to break loose. So I'm going to go quiet for a moment, and I'm going to let the dialogue speak for itself.
I spent it. It's gone. Just get over it.
What do you mean? What do you mean it's gone? How can you have spent our savings?
So, welcome to the Ascent. At this point in time, we're now going to be going up through all of the floors that we went through previously in kind of a condensed form. So don't worry, it's not the full floor again, although if you did an XL floor, for example, then you'll still have like a larger space to work with, but it'll be much smaller than it was originally, so you're not like literally doubling your playtime. It might feel that way, but you're not. And there are several new enemies along the way as well, some of which are heinously obnoxious. To a really, like, uncomfortable degree. But we'll talk about those when they show up. Also, my cat's looking for attention. Hello, baby. She's not used to seeing someone downstairs at this time. Or she should be. Because I never sleep. Yeah, see here, you can go in the treasure room, and if there's anything left there from your trip up, then you'll still be able to take it now. It won't change.
He's self-destructive and disturbed, just like his father. Look at who he has to look up to. And you're drunk again, aren't you?
Shut up, Mac! Shut up! You just keep pushing me like this. I'm leaving.
Good, leave! We'll be fine without you. Abandon us like you've abandoned yourself.
So we're getting quite a lot of backstory here, which is unusual for the Binding of Isaac, because I don't often talk about the lore of Isaac. I don't think it's really that important for the experience, but it is there, and it's rare to get this level of clarity with anything. It really kind of reinforces that this is the final update, and, you know, we want to answer some of the questions. Even so, I think some of Ed McMillan's statements regarding this ending sequence have done absolutely nothing but confuse the matter further. So my advice would be, as the dialogue unfolds and we get what's now considered, you know, the canonical final ending, take it based on what the game shows you directly rather than listening to like any Word of God stuff, because Ed McMillan, man, he tries to make out this game as being this like unbelievably tragic narrative, like the most depressing thing ever made, and he seems to forget this is a game where animated cartoon turds shoot sweet corn at you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think this game is quite the Greek tragedy that Ed McMillan seems to think it is. Even if the story does deal with darker themes, darkness doesn't equal tragedy by design. Like, a lot of it is played for black comedy. A lot of it could only be played for black comedy, otherwise it just comes across as ridiculous, really. There's way too much toilet humor, way too much immature content, and even just in terms of some of the items and such, you know, you can't take this too seriously, you just can't. But I do appreciate the effort with storytelling, especially during this sequence here. Being able to actually get some, like, concrete details on stuff, that'll probably make quite a few people happy. Myself, I admire the attention to detail, but I'm not that interested or engaged. I don't really play this game in particular for story content. That having been said, one of the bosses that we'll be fighting very soon, I have nothing but praise for. I think it's a phenomenal design. I'm sure most of you know who I'm referring to, because I think everyone likes this boss, like, pretty universally. Gameplay-wise, why am I pausing? Gameplay-wise, you could make a case of, there's some stuff I'm not super keen on. But from like a gameplay, from a perspective of where gameplay and story meet, like the integration of narrative into the game design, oh, it's so good. It's like the best part. It's like the best part of the whole expansion. Rest assured, we'll be gushing about that when we get to it. But I will talk a little bit about this item that I'm holding at the moment, the cracked key. This is going to be the main method by which you unlock tainted characters. As said before, you get given an active item at the end of this process that will give you one for free, but only on your first go. Any subsequent attempt, you'll need to make sure that you're carrying one of these, unless you just get lucky and find the item in question. So to get a cracked key, they are a guaranteed spawn if you leave a trinket in any boss room leading up to this point. The room where you find Dad's note also counts. You can just leave one in there before you pick up the note and it will turn into a cracked key. You saw that before. This is the easiest way of going about it. Otherwise you're going to be wondering to yourself, oh god, did I remember to leave a trinket in a boss room? I don't remember. Don't worry about that, just take advantage of the fact that, you know, Dad's room still counts, and then go from there.
You need to repent. You need to confess your sins and become saved. Let his light inside you cleanse your soul.
You are insane. You are taking this too far. Can't you hear how you sound?
Pray with me. Pray for your salvation. Come, pray with us, Isaac.
Yeah, there's quite a fair bit of dialogue in this section. More dialogue than we've had in any other part of the game, rest assured. Am I the only person, and maybe I'm just a complete idiot, am I the only person who didn't realise that the narrator from the intro sequence was meant to be Isaac's father? I just never put any thought into it, really. Maybe that was common knowledge, maybe I'm just dumb. Apparently Legend of Bumbo shed some light on a few details concerning this game's story. I didn't play Legend of Bumbo though because I thought the game looked fucking awful. It's the honest answer. I thought that game looked atrocious. Maybe Bumbo was worth playing. I don't know. I only have enough room in my brain for like 3 roguelikes anyway. So, isn't Bumbo some weird like deck building game anyway? I have no idea how that works. I watched the trailer for it. I watched like a tiny bit of gameplay and I did not understand what the hell I was looking at. So, not for me. I'm really not into like deck building stuff anyway. It kind of brings me back to when I was younger, when I used to play like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. I never got into Magic the Gathering, but even so, I think I'm kind of just beyond the mental state necessary for deck building games. So, how are y'all doing? You can tell I've kind of run out of things to say already. No. This enemy can go fuck themselves. These things are called Tainted Spitties, and they are the most hateful enemy in the entire game. I'm so glad they only show up during the Ascent. That ring of shots that they split into on death has hit me so many times. It's not that hard to avoid, really. If you're near the door, you can just duck out the door and then re-enter. But oh man, it's so unpredictable if you try and dodge it manually. It's awful. They shoot out that line of projectiles so suddenly as well, like you have no time to react to it whatsoever. They're just constantly spraying bullets everywhere. Those things are horrendous, actually. If they were more common in the game, I'd go so far as to call them like the new Stonies in terms of just misery. Except Stonies at least don't kill you directly. Imagine Stonies that shot at you. Yeah. Didn't we get something like that in the April Fool's Challenge? I mean, granted, that was, you know, it was meant to be a joke. That was being played for chuckles. Yeah, imagine if those were just, like, legit enemies in the game. Like, holy shit. There's quite a few new enemies. What's interesting is there are tainted versions of some of the enemies from the alternate floors as well, but I think for most people, if you're doing the Ascent route, you're probably just playing the standard floors. So, like, for a while I had a couple of empty spots in the bestiary because I just hadn't seen, like, the tainted tube worm that only appears in, you know, Ascent Downpour. So, yeah, that's the thing. These enemies are also fairly difficult to deal with. These jumping starfish-looking things, I don't know what they are. But yeah, they have a huge amount of health, honestly, about the same as like a mini-boss. Probably on a similar level to like Duke of Flies or something, at least it feels that way. One of the reasons why I used this run as the basis for the recording is because I'm not massively overpowered, so you kind of get to see the enemies retaliate a bit more. My initial run of the Ascent, I may have said this already, I can't even remember, was just a complete whitewash because I was so horribly overpowered, so even I didn't get to see all of the new enemy patterns on my first attempt at this, which is a shame, but, you know, it is what it is. And there's a slight delay to the dialogue in this part, so I'm gonna go quiet now.
Wait! We need you! Your son needs you!
I'm doing more. Just can't do this anymore. I'm sorry.
Please don't leave us!
I'm sorry.
One thing that I do really appreciate with the dialogue in this ending sequence is getting a little bit more clarity on why Isaac's father left. To me, at the very least, it was never 100% clear whether his mother turned to religion because the father walked out, or if the father walked out because of his mother's fanaticism. So this ending kind of implies that it's both, in a sense. Like, her religious obsession was the main reason why Isaac's father left, but it got worse after he walked out of the door. That's the impression I get from this, which, to be fair, is probably the most realistic outcome. I know realism and Isaac don't really go hand in hand, but that is how I imagine that a messy divorce of this nature would happen. A lot of this dialogue does feel quite real in that sense. Like, you can kind of tell that this was based on some sort of personal experience, even if it's not like an exact copy of something that either Ed McMillan or someone or one of the writers went through. You can tell this is drawing from like a real personal experience. You know, I grew up in a difficult household. My parents had a really horrible relationship with each other, so a lot of this rings true, if you know what I mean. Like, even though it's not a 100% accurate reflection, there is truth in these words. Like, anyone who grew up in a difficult family or with any degree of abuse in their household will understand where this dialogue's coming from, which I think is really important. You know, it doesn't need to be non-fiction to be true, I guess, is where I'm coming from with this. So I don't know how much of this is based on Ed McMillan's childhood, or just the general concept of a dysfunctional family, but it's interesting. It's food for thought. It also ties in really well with just, I guess, justifying some of the weird shit that you see in this game, because kids in families like this do tend to grow up disturbed. It's impossible not to, really, when your only influence is coming from a place of pain. If those around you themselves are suffering, they will pass that suffering on to you. It's one of the reasons why you hear stories about people who grew up in bad families unintentionally becoming that way themselves when they have children. It's a hard cycle to break. Anyway, enough of the philosophizing, because we have a video game to finish. This is home, as depicted in the intro sequence, if you'll remember. Isaac and his Isaac lived in an Isaac on an Isaac. There's not too much to do in here. There's a couple of pickups. There's a bed for a free heal, recommended if you're using a Soul Heart build. Don't be a fucking idiot like me and drop the Temperance Machine by accident, because you're apparently drunk while playing. And over here in Mum's bedroom, this is where you pick up the red key if you're doing this for the first time. If not, you'll need to have a cracked key when you reach this point, which, like I said before, you can get just by dropping a trinket in a boss room before initiating the ascent. and that will give you access to the Tainted version of whichever character you're currently playing as. Even if you use the clicker, or you reset your run, you're only ever going to get one Tainted character, so I don't think you can choose it. Anyway, now for this. This is Dogma, also known as the best fight in the game, because holy shit, the design on this thing is amazing! This boss is so fucking cool. I love the concept of it being... So the boss itself is completely invincible. You cannot damage Dogma itself in any way, shape or form apart from attacking the TV. It's meant to be a personification of the Christian broadcasts that drove Isaac's mother insane. So it makes so much sense that the creature itself should be invincible and the television should be the main target. That is like the most brilliant metaphor. I love that. I love shit like that so much. And then when you take it out of its first phase, it will turn into, I believe this is an Ophanim? I'm not great with biblical terminology. Either way, it's a winged wheel which will pass through the screen multiple times. This attack takes a lot of practice to get down. The main base form of Dogma, when it's in its fetus stage, only has, I believe, 4 or 5 attacks. He didn't do many of them on this run, which is a shame. But the Brimstone Laser, the Curving Laser, can be dodged by staying close to him and just kind of slowly moving left and right in an alternating pattern. It's kind of hard to explain, but once you've done it a few times, you get used to it. So yeah, that is Dogma. Brilliant boss. Good job. Sadly, after Dogma, this fight doesn't quite live up to the expectations, but you know what? I still think this is cool. So you have Flight, you also get a free Hurley Mantle effect, which I immediately wasted because Ultra Famine here decided to dunk me in the fucking lava. You're going to be fighting all 4 of the Harbingers in a powered up state. This is effectively a boss rush, where you have to do both phases of Dogma, immediately followed by 4 new bosses, which are all based on the Harbingers, but again, you won't have seen these bullet patterns before in your first run, so it's a lot to take in. Dogma does give you a heal after you defeat it, but only if you're below a certain threshold. I think it's 6 hearts. If you're playing on normal as well, the item that gives you Flight here, which is just called Dogma, it's the crucifix made of static that fell on Isaac in the cutscene. That also gives you a wafer effect, but like I said, only on normal, so if you're playing on hard, you won't see that. You won't see any difference there at all. Ultra Pestilence here, he doesn't do that maggot attack very often in my experience, so I'm glad that I actually got it on camera for once. I barely ever see him do the maggot move. But yeah, this is an odd ending. I kind of wish Dogma was the final boss, like maybe just make the fight a bit harder and have that thing be the last opponent that you face, because by comparison, the Beast, which will be making its grand debut after I kill the Harbingers, it's a little bit lame by comparison. It's just a big devil we've never seen before, we've never alluded to this boss in any way, shape or form. I will point out a couple of details when we get to that stage, but it's okay. Overall, despite being a boss rush, this isn't terribly difficult. Like I said to you before, I did have an overpowered build on my first attempt, but I did still beat it first try without any real issues. You get free battery charges after every Harbinger that you kill. It's either 1 or 2 charges. I literally just saw and I've already forgotten. I think it's 2 charges. So if you have a book or something that you want to spam, then by all means. Box of Friends is amazing in this fight, as is Sulfur, Larynx, and anything that recharges by itself is also going to be really good, like Sharp Straw, just for a ton of free damage on these things, just kind of speeds the whole process up. Something that was pointed out to me recently, I haven't tried it myself, I think Book of Belial now stacks if you use it repeatedly, so definitely could have done with that on this run through, but I didn't know it at the time. Again, that might not even be true. Feel free to comment, I guess. But yeah, now we're on to the Beast. Only a few attacks on this one, actually. We have the Ring of Fire that you're seeing here. There is a beginner's trap at the end of this fire ring. The boss is going to emit basically a full screen brimstone laser that you can only dodge by flying to the top of the screen. Here I intentionally got hit by it because I wanted to show off. You really do need to dodge preemptively. If you leave it to the last minute, you're not going to dodge it. You have to already be in position. Here I just take it up the arse. Like, that wasn't intentional at all. That was just me playing badly. But, you know, you don't come to me expecting pro-level gameplay, or if you do, then what the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, once the beast goes down into the lava, you're on to the final phase. All you have to do at this point is just keep shooting it and dodge the stalactites. He has another move, or she, I should say, because as you'll see, it is wearing Mom's polka dot dress, so I'm assuming this boss is female, but, you know, did you just assume it's gender, etc, etc, etc. At this point in time, just keep shooting away at it, dodge the stalactites, look out for any random falling debris, and you should be good to go. Honestly, the beast really isn't that difficult. It can be a bit of an endurance test if you're on a low DPS run, but otherwise, there you are.
Then suddenly, the sky above cracked open, and a white beam of light reached down into the earth, smiting the mother of harlots asunder, and setting the blood lake to a boil. As the beast descended down into the lake of fire, Isaac ascended towards the crack in the sky, and as he flew, he could see echoes of his past before him. He saw his mother mourning the loss of her son. He saw his father leaving them without turning to say goodbye. He saw his mother sleeping, and his father taking money from her purse. He heard the late-night fights they had that kept him up at night, and the guilt he felt for what he believed he was causing. He felt the pain in his stomach during those sleepless nights, and saw his shadow in the closet waiting for him. As he rose, he felt his fears drop from his body, his shame, his worry pulled from his being. As he became lighter, his ascent became faster. He saw his one true companion alive and well. He saw his mother and father together again, holding each other. He felt his mother kissing him on the head after he had said his prayers, and the comfort in knowing someone was watching over him. He saw his own birth, and the faces of his parents filled with joy and optimism. And then he saw nothing. Are you sure this is how you want this story to end, Isaac? You're the one writing it. It doesn't have to end this way. Here, how about we tell it a different way? Maybe a happy ending?
Okay, Daddy.
Good. Are you getting sleepy yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so Isaac and his parents lived in a small house on the top of a hill.
Well, what a strange, unexpected way of tying together this whole package. Keep in mind, Isaac's been in the making for 10 years, and we've only just now really put a bow on everything with this final ending. I love the Ascent. I think it's a great idea, maybe a little bit clumsily handled, but the concept is fantastic. The Dogma boss fight is wonderful in pretty much every single way, maybe a little bit too easy, but who cares. Same goes for the Beast. Again, a little bit too easy. Kinda wish Dogma was the final boss, but it's still fun. I think this is a great way of tying together Repentance just as an overall package. And I guess Isaac as a whole, really, as well, considering what this means. Anyway, I've rambled for long enough. Thank you for tuning in this far. I know this video has been a bit messy, but there was a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. I may chop and change certain parts of the video in post-production, but for now I'm going to leave you with a montage of me unlocking every single Tainted character in the game. God damn, this took a while, as well as Dogma's boss fight theme. So take care, I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you again soon with some Tainted characters. I had to stutter right at the end there, didn't I?
Then we have fellowship with each other, and the blood of Jesus, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. If we claim we have no sin, we are only fooling ourselves and not living in the truth. But if we confess our sins to him, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all wickedness.
And so I tell you, every kind of sin and slander but blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven.
Impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy, for a greedy person is an idolater, worshipping the things of this world. Because of these sins, the anger